It's 26th of July 2026. Okay, now I want to give some advice to Gary Stevenson because what he wants to achieve is that on the one hand, the government will tax wealth. And when he says wealth, he means more than 20, 50 million. Not ordinary people, not even the upper middle class, just the rich. He wants to tax this wealth. And he's not talking about taking everything. No, he's talking about 1, 2, 3%. Just taking a little. Because right now it's zero. So pay a little. That's what he wants. Now, and he wants to use that money to pay off government debt. So they have enough money to invest in infrastructure and to keep the welfare state afloat and provide proper health care for everyone and proper housing. And so that's his plan. And I totally agree with him. I grew up and live in a welfare state in the Netherlands. And we're one of the best countries in the world. And all our people are healthy and happy, even though they're grumpy all the time. But, it's the best place to live. And I wish the whole world could live like we do. And I know that we can because we have enough wealth. We have enough money. We have enough assets. We have enough to take care of everyone's needs, just not for the greed. Now, anyway, but I'm looking at him, and he's talking to politicians and policymakers, etc., and he's trying to motivate them to take action and start introducing bills to tax the wealth. To change policies, to make the Labour government say, okay, we're going to tax the wealth and we're going to save the welfare state, etc., etc. And it's not working. He's doing videos and interviews and he's pushing people and talking to them. You should do this. You should do that. You, as a politician, you should do this policy. You should have a law, this and that. You know what? They're not listening. And they're certainly not doing anything. So, I was thinking, if this doesn't work, and I know why it doesn't work, because I've been a civil servant for 30 years. I know how government works. And I know how to get things done. Because Gary is going for the big push, the big results, the big bill, the big beautiful bill to tax the rich, etc., to change policy, to change the way people see the world and see their function as a politician, and to change their mind. And then I sort of go, yeah, you want to change somebody else's mind? Yeah, well, good luck with that. All of that is just not happening. And when you don't only want them to change their mind, you want them to change their behavior and their position. And if there's one thing people do not want to do, it's change. People see change. We're monkeys. We're apes. We have an innate fear of change. And we don't want to change. People are so afraid of change that even if you put the bed on fire, they'll still keep lying in this bed because they're used to it. It's my bed and I'm not getting out. Yeah, but the flames are not changing. I'm not getting out. Even if the whole world is crashing down around them, there are many people who simply will not change. So the thing is, don't ask them to change. Just don't. Don't ask them to change their mind. Don't ask them to change their policy. Don't ask them to change, period. And if you look at the parliamentary system in England, it's been this way for 1,000 years. It's been growing, and the civil service and all the politicians and all the rules and regulations and laws, and it has been growing and growing and slowly changing, just a little bit here and a little bit there, and it has grown into this. Well, it's almost alive, isn't it? And into this system with politics, with parties, with civil servants, etc., and the way laws are, and lawyers and judges, and the whole government system and the whole society as a system. And short of a revolution and chopping off the king's head, you're not going to change the system like that. And I wouldn't even want to. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful system. And like the democratic traditions in the Netherlands and in France, and all these traditions are wonderful. They oppose change. So, what do you do when, in this case, you want to have a big change? Going from neoliberalism and the rich having all the power and deciding and controlling all the politicians, to taxing the rich, regulating, and rebuilding the welfare state. Fortunately, we have a great example. We were a welfare state. The UK was a welfare state. It was a wonderful place. And so all we're saying is we want to make the UK great again. We want to make the UK like it was when it was still a welfare state in the 60s and the 70s, when ordinary workers could buy a house and ordinary workers' children could go to university. So that is a good pitch to make. That is a good story to sell. So now I get to strategy, because how do you eat an elephant? A chocolate elephant, not a real elephant. A chocolate elephant. You have this big chocolate elephant because government and taxes and laws, they're just like an oil tanker, right? Have you ever tried to steer one of those big tankers or one of those big container ships? Well, it takes you about 5 miles just to turn 1 degree. You have to, it goes very slowly. And it's very difficult and it costs a lot of energy and oil to burn the engines to change it. So what I am proposing is, don't try to change the course of the ship, of the container ship. Just start moving the containers on the ship. Because how do you eat a chocolate elephant? 1 bite at the time. What does it mean in practice? Well, start introducing and lobbying and writing and promoting little bills. So rich people will have to pay a little more on their property, and they have to pay a little more on their income, and they have to pay a little more on the interest they make on shares and stocks and bonds, and they have to pay a little bit more here and a little bit more there. And you have all these little laws. And then you look at the existing tax laws, and you see which tax laws are specifically aimed for the rich. And then when this tax law says, well, if they own a big mansion, they have to pay 1% tax on it. I'm just saying. And so then you propose a bill to go to 2%. And the next year you propose a bill to go to 3%. And then very slowly you start taking little bites out of this huge chocolate elephant with little laws. And you sort of fly under the radar. So nobody really knows it's really happening. But then you say, and if you're a good civil servant, I'm not saying I used to be one, but if you're a good civil servant, just having all these little laws, you can have little explanations of why it's necessary. So you say, well, we want to raise some capital to clean up the water mess, buy back the water companies and clean up the water and rebuild the pipes, etc. So we thought if we just make the tax on big mansions and big houses just a little bit higher, we can pay for the water cleanup, and you'll have a good story. You can sell that to the rich and the poor, and you say, well, if you have a really big house with land and stuff like that, and you pay just a little bit more, then everybody has clean drinking water. And who can object to that? So you start doing all these little, you build a wall with all these little pieces of stone. And it'll take a few years. But to have one big, beautiful bill to change everybody's mind, that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So don't change the course of the ship. Change the containers on the ship. And then you go, but who's going to write the bills? And they're going to have civil servants, and we have to promote that. And then I say, well, if you were a pharmaceutical company or a chemical company, and you wanted a bill passed, which is, polluting, or, you just know that a lot of people are not going to want it. Because there's a lot of people who do not want to tax the rich in general, So if you're a pharmaceutical or a chemical company, and you want to pass a bill so you can do certain things which people will oppose, because it'll change things and no one change, and it'll cost. Now, what does this chemical company do? Well, they have their own policymakers and their own lawyers, and they write a bill, and with all the explanations and everything, a parliament and lawyers and everything anybody would want it to look like. You make, a whole stash of paper, and in such a way that the civil servants don't have to work. Basically, you make it in such a way that it is as if the civil service had written it. It is perfectly presented. All the politician has to do is sign. Or get it to Parliament, get a vote, and get a yes. So you have to have some kind of explanation, to explain and to promote this bill and say, so the politicians can say, oh, well, it's a good thing. Because this chemical, if we give this permit to this chemical factory to expand, then there will be more jobs and there'll be more money and more taxes and the community will profit from it. So you have to have the bill perfectly written and you have to have a very acceptable, good-looking explanation why it's a good thing to pass this bill. And you make it in such a way that the civil service has to do nothing. They can just, put a stamp on it. It goes on to the secretary who puts a stamp on it, puts it to Parliament, and all Parliament has to do is say aye. So what you're basically doing is doing all the work for them. If a politician has to do anything else than just say aye and sign, he's not going to do it. No politician is going to do anything. That is why the civil service is so powerful. Now, but of course, a lot of these companies, they don't just give the stack of papers to the civil servant and hope that he will make it happen. No, you hire a lobbyist who will take the stack of papers and start lobbying with everybody so they will support the bill when it gets to the vote. So you make sure you have all the votes before you put it to the vote. That's what a lobbyist does. And that is exactly what you do to tax wealth. So you make not one big, beautiful, no, you make a whole lot of little bills with a whole lot of very good explanations why it's a good thing that people are, that the politicians support this bill. And then you give every time you finish a bill, you give it to the lobbyist and you say, okay, run with it. And he goes and takes his bill and runs with it and has lunch with everybody and say, it's just a little bill. It's just 1%. It's a good thing. And you can say you've done something good because you cleaned up the water, to come back to my earlier. So what you need is a lobbyist, and then before that, you need to write the law, and for which you need a lawyer, and you have to have a good motivation, explanation, supporting reports and data and policy, which is written by experts, institutes, professors, etc. So then Gary's coming to me and he's saying, yeah, well, how am I going to pay for all that? And I say, well, I have this bright idea. How am I going to do that? Because we're going to go on the internet and we're going to ask people to contribute to writing the bill, writing the motivation, and we're going to ask lobbyists and all the people who know anybody in politics to promote this bill. The lobbyists, you might have to pay a little. So we do a crowdfunding to pay for the lobbyists. And we do everything on this one big, wonderful website. Because if Wikipedia can do it, it can be sort of a wiki website where you invite all the lawyers and all the experts to work together on this on these papers and laws that you wish to present. And they, well, there are a huge amount of retired lawyers and civil servants and professors, etc., who would love to contribute to making their country a better place, and who would love to work on a project again and make a difference and use all this knowledge and experience they have to do some good. Think of Victor Meldrew. Wouldn't he love to contribute to such a project and make the world a better place? And say, be at birthday parties and say, I did that, I worked on that, and then you say, why? Apart from their personal ego in contributing to this project, the other thing is a lot of people want to do good. A lot of people want to make their country a better place. They want better healthcare, better education, better housing. They want this. And if they can, in a small way, contribute to realizing that, they would love to spend a Sunday afternoon working online and looking at the laws, etc. So you just work with volunteers, and you have the whole thing online. You build the website. So you need people to build the website, which is fine because there are a lot of people who would like to contribute in such a way. Because there are so many bright, wonderful, caring people who are stuck in bullshit jobs, and they would love to do some good and to help their country. Don't forget about that. And it's just, contribute a Sunday afternoon or, whatever. And if you're retired, you're stuck, you're thinking, what should I do? If you can contribute and help, they would love to do it. Only now, if there's no website and no call to action, then they don't know where to go. Because there's so many people out there frustrated. They're, the government, and they're doing nothing, and they feel so powerless and helpless. So you offer them this website and say, come on, let's do this. We need people to do this. We need people to do this. We need people to do that. Help working on this. And I think you will be amazed at the amount of people who are so frustrated and have time and energy and would really like to help. And you start and Gary Stevenson can start with the 1 million followers he has. There must be computer experts, lawyers, tax lawyers, policymakers, professors, among all these people who are who support him. This is my contribution to your project, and this is just for Gary Stevenson, but actually my vision is bigger than that. If there are computer experts and people who have server space and facilities, I would like to make several Wikipedia hubs, not just for taxing wealth and rebuilding the welfare state, but also you can have a project. Let's make all our laws simple, easy to read, and let's take all the lawyers in the country and ask them to work together like in a wiki and rewrite our laws. We don't even have to change the content. Just make it so that ordinary people can read it, and we won't have the need for so many lawsuits, etc. So it is, you can so ordinary people can understand it and use it in their daily lives, and they're not forced to pay for a lawyer if they're in a conflict, because nobody who can read all that complicated stuff, So that will be a project. But then you could build a site and say, okay, if you see a problem somewhere, like energy transition, but also there's this neighborhood in my town, I would like to start a project and revitalize it, and start a project, or start project for growing vegetables, finding a plot and growing vegetables and introducing people to healthy eating. There's so many projects. And if you would have like this big hub of all these different Wikipedia and all these different websites where people can post their problem and then maybe a solution, but you only have to post a problem, and then you invite people to give solutions, and then you invite people to work at making these solutions happen. And this is truly democracy. People taking their destiny into their own hands, and finding sponsors and working at it and accomplishing from the bottom up a better world. Because right now, what are we doing? We're just sitting there at the dinner table in bars and cafes and drinking our beer and, slagging off the politicians, and they do nothing, etc., etc. And I sort of go, well, you expect too much of them. You can't expect them to fix any and every problem. But, because there's no infrastructure for that. But if we build this website and allow people to meet each other and give solutions and work on it, we can, from the bottom up, on a local level, or even on for the whole country, post a problem, post a solution, and volunteer to make it happen. And now it's all just, there's no hub. People, a lot of good people, they don't know where to go. They don't know how to do it. And a lot of people with a huge amount of expertise, and a lot of retired people who have huge knowledge, and we're not using them. And they would love to be used. Like me, I'm retired. And so I'm no good at building websites. What I'm good at is having ideas, analyzing problems, and being creative and thinking up solutions. So we need to take internet back from Google, back from Amazon, back from all these people who want to sell us goods and porn and whatever, and use it like it was supposed to be used, to bring people together, to bring people together so they can accomplish something good and beautiful in their own town and their own country. And so maybe there are some computer experts and people who have servers and whatever. And for the time being, just, just email me, and I will send your emails to all the other people until we have some kind of hub. And then the whole thing can get a life of its own. And not just in the UK, in every country. Yeah, well, I dream big. But anyway, Gary, if you want to eat this chocolate elephant, start this piece of the website for writing these little laws, and then inviting lobbyists and getting the whole thing organized, and just push and push to get a whole lot of little laws accepted. On the one, to get to tax wealth, but only also to rebuild the welfare state. That is my wish. I wish everybody could live in, have the kind of life that I've had in a wonderful welfare state. And we have enough money if we just spread it around a little. Good luck.